welcome all the eminent panelists who are here today for the session of upgrading teachers and content based on the new Education Policy 2020. I was really excited when Pranav invited me to be the moderator because it's giving me an opportunity to meet such wonderful people. Though he's introduced, would you like me to run everybody's names again, Pranav, or we
Yeah,
proceed?
please do
Yes.
that, ma'am.
So we have with us Mr. Pramod Mahajan, School Director,
Yeah.
Ms. Sonali Gupta, Principal, Indian Language School, Lagos, Nigeria, Captain Dr. Dinisha Bhardwaj Singh, Principal, GIS, Global Indian International School, Malaysia, Dr. Rajiv Chauhan, he's come, uh,
He's
Principal,
on the
Indian
camera.
School, Muscat, I think he has, and Mr.
He's not
Tiju
on the
Gupta, co-founder and COO of Bachan Schools,
He's
Dr.
joined.
Jyoti Gupta is here, founder director DPS Saibabad. Dr. Priyanka Mehta, Principal Sarvotam International School Noida. Mr. S.K. Rathore, Chairman and Managing Director of Sanford School. Thank you all for taking out the time today. My first question is to Dr. Jyoti Gupta, founder, director, DPS Saibabad. The new education policy talks of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure. What are the steps your school has taken in redesigning the content to develop a holistic learning and scalability, ma'am?
Uh, we are just, I think, about 10 days, 12 days in the, NEP. And we are all still trying to understand as to what NEP has in hold for all of us. So I wouldn't say that we have prepared ourselves already, because there are timelines, and the timelines have to be adhered to. All of us will get more clarity on the content and how do we transact that content and how do we assess that content once NCRT comes out with the curriculum, and the NCTE also works on what kind of qualifications would people have, those who would be transacting this curriculum with the children. So right now it is more discussions like this that we are having, where we are all trying to understand what is written in the policy and what is not written in the policy, and what is there in between the lines for all of
Yes.
us to read and to understand. So I think these webinars are very, very important. These discussions are very, very important, because somewhere the policy makers will also converge with so much of knowledge or so much of understanding that is going to come out of webinars like this. So most of us are still trying to understand. Now this structure that is there, and I'm sure Mr. Rathore will agree with me that schools like his have been into the space for a long time, and they have been able to bridge the gap between the age group of, let us say, 2 plus to 5 plus or 6 plus, that was there in the schools, because the formal education actually is expected to begin with in class 1 in the formal schools. So whether it is the recognition of the schools or the NOC of the schools or the affiliation to different boards that was coming in, it was coming in from class 1 only. Though if we talk about the IB was coming up with the program from nursery up till class 5. But apart from IB, I don't think there is any other board which was talking about the preschool or was talking about pre-nursery, nursery, prep, and 1. But with this NEP coming in now, there is a lot of formalization of the curriculum, the syllabi, and the content is going to come in. So it is not very diverse from what is already happening in the preschools, because they are recommending the playway method of teaching, and that is what all of us have been following also. The playway, whether you talk about kindergarten as a system, where Frobel gave us the concept of working, where the children work for themselves and there is lifelong learning, and we do not tell the children as to what is to be done. They explore and they learn on their own. Similarly, if we look at the Maria Montessori system, Dr. Maria Montessori also gave us the same principles to work on the experiential learning. Or if we talk about Gijubai Patel, or we talk about the Nai Talim, we talk about Gandhiji, everybody gave us a similar kind of a philosophy, where all of us were wanting to work with the children in the experiential way. So I'm sure the NEP, where it has brought in a package of, let us say, 5 years, that is preschool, nursery, prep 1 and 2, there is going to be a linkage together of the children coming from the pre-nursery up till class 2. So the entire foundational group is going to study together. There's going to be a linkage together, and whether they study in the preschool spaces like that of Sanford, or they study in the formal schools, that is with us, there's going to be a binding curriculum. So the people are not going to crib anymore that the children are not learning in so and so school, or they are not coming with enough practice, and there's going to be more benefit coming to the children, I would say. So we are all in the process of formalizing the content, but also waiting for the NCERT to come out with the nomenclature, to come out with the curriculum that will be rolled out by all of us.
So is there some kind of timelines which you have been given?
Kavita ma'am, can you tell all the panelists, let us go 2 minutes each? Fine, ma'am.
So,
and then can you start with Dr. Priyanka Mehta? Thank you, Dr. Jyoti Gupta.
Thank you.
So my next question, you would like me to talk to Priyanka Gupta? So
Priyanka Mehta.
That's fine. That's okay. I'm used to that. I think Jyoti is used to Mehta and I'm used to Gupta, so that's okay.
So, but Priyanka, I was actually Mehta. I was actually Jyoti.
I know. Half of the world thought we were sisters. I'm pretty okay with that. Yeah.
So another challenge which I foresee children would require guidance and mentoring to make right choices in this stream. So hence a teacher's role becomes very important, because you would also become like counselors and guiding the children, because it's a new stream and it's going to be more of logic, less rote. So how would you go about it? Would they be trained into counseling, or it will be, you'll have specialists doing this, helping the children? What have you thought of?
Thank you, ma'am. It's very nice to be here with all of you. I would feel, regarding counseling and making choices, I would say that most of the schools are pretty much ahead of this entire process, and we have been doing this for some time now. And I would say in most systems, the counseling and the alignment of career choices comes in as early as in class 8. So the schools are already conscious of this fact that children have to understand what choices they have to make in their careers. They have to understand why they want to be, they want to go about it. What are they? In fact, not just one, they have to have a plan A, B, and C, all those plans in place. Let's say if one doesn't work, then what is the second option they have and the third option that they have. The good part about what I've understood in the policy is that it gives children the freedom to make choices out of many options. So, and of course, the choice also goes on into the higher education domain, following up the school. Now, my concern is only the execution part, that I am yet to understand how this entire change is going to be executed, because it is most important that the schools were already doing this. What we felt as a disconnect was that when the child passed out of school and got into something else, the continuity was missing. So that continuity has to be executed well, and it has to be executed not for the sake of change. It has to be executed thoughtfully. So as Jyoti said, we're still waiting. There are timelines. We're waiting for the final instructions to come. It's a little too early for us to understand how things will ultimately look like. And but for the schools, I think the counseling system is pretty much in place. There are we engage in career fairs, we engage in many things that help children get that kind of exposure and an understanding. They're passing out of class 12. And of course, even before they, they sit for the 10th standard exams to decide the streams, to understand what subjects they want, the understanding, the simulative experience is already there. Very interestingly, I was, talking to a group which is into career counseling, and it was interesting to see how they've put in the demo interviews, how they've put in the understanding of the professions, how they've put in the simulation modules in place where children can actually act as early as in class 7, 8. So I think that feeling, that understanding of the change is already there, and we'll all jump at it. This is one of the most beautiful changes that is going to come about in education. The career plan that they're talking about.
So they're looking at the early internships also.
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing. In the middle of
I think we've been waiting for years for this to come, and now it's a very, very happy change. It's really interesting. It's really nice.
Thank you. My next question will be to Captain Dr. Dinisha Bhardwaj Singh of GISS. The new curriculum and pedagogy in schools, learning should be holistic, integrated, enjoyable, and engaging. How are you coping with this change? From what I understand, everybody right now, as people have spoken earlier, are still getting the feel of things and are in a planning stage. However, what is your thought process in your school?
Well, thanks for this question. In fact, what you have asked, or whatever, how it comes to the latest policy in education, probably I think most of us are doing it in international level of schooling. And like for that matter, when you talk about experiential learning in from standard 6 to 8, or holistic development, when we are talking about it, working on values, or working on integrating other parts or other subjects in normal learning process. So to me, I find it very easy because we are doing it. Only the thing is, if at all some streamlined structure comes, because right now the education policy has just highlighted to work on it. And we are, if at all some structure comes forward from their side, because execution is yet to be worked out, then we will say how we will align to it. For example, in our school, we have IGCSE curriculum, we have CBSE also. So in that, as one of the vision which our school follows, talks about 9 gems doctrine, and talks about holistic development of students, where they are into a lot of such projects. Only the thing is, the difference, the technical difference, what I find here is the curriculum which we are following, which has initiated way back in 1986 or something, where we call it rote learning or something. So that is being followed strictly, because that is part of CBSE protocol to be taken forward. Other than that, as far as how to disseminate that curriculum down the lane to students, to take home and to develop them into smart individuals, as we say, I think practically that is being done partially, or maybe I can say 80%. Only the thing is, integrating it and streamlining it will be taken care of. But one question I will put it across to the forum, because I'm engaged in something else, so I may have to quit. And that is that, that can go through you to the other panelists, that a lot of good things have been talked about in this policy. We have talked about changing the process for pre-primary, as a little while ago Dr. Jyoti spoke, and then we have talked about taking care of experiential learning. We talked about less pressure of academics or something like that. So the concern which I want to share on this forum is that are we actually aligning it to school, from school level to college level, though we have talked about getting universities in, from college level to competitive examinations, and then from competitive examinations to professional forum. So this is a query and a question which I put it across, and I'll see it in recording later as to how the elite forum answers this, because that is actually a query in many minds, and the policies and processes are yet to come. So that is what I felt like expressing here. Thank you so much.
So as Captain has to leave early, anybody could add a line to what she wanted to ask you. If it would help, it would be nice. Anybody from our panelists?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to say, definitely there is going to be a continuity. As we see in the curriculum itself, there is a lot of continuity, or the base itself says that there has to be progression right from the foundation stage to the preparatory stage to the secondary stage. And I was also reading about higher education. How are they going to proceed further in that, and how the multidisciplinary approach will be there. So I feel that the education policy does not just stick to about schools. It goes on further to help the students to assimilate them, to accommodate them in colleges and universities. And of course, the system will be such that the flexibility of choosing different career pathways and subject combinations should definitely continue even at the university level. Because the present day world is looking at a model of a person which has a combination of different skills and is not capable of mastering only in one skill. So when we're talking about 21st century skills and employability skills, I think there definitely will be continuity. I'm very hopeful that if further we dwell into it, we will find that the policy does talk about it. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. We are just keeping our fingers crossed and
Yes.
having an on the processes the way it comes
Yes.
up.
As it is unfurling and we are understanding it more, I think the journey is an endless one, and it would continue for the betterment of India.
It is
Definitely.
beginning now. The beginning is good. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pravan,
Thank you for being
for
here.
having me here. I really apologize. I have to quit. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Bye. Sonali, as you are already
Thank
there,
you,
my
Captain.
question to you is, there are many challenges faced in online learning. Conversion of modules in a short time, and teachers having to take a plunge into an alien environment of delivery. So are the teachers undergoing any training in online delivery? Do they find the difference? Are there any hurdles which are there so far? I would like to know something more about it.
Thank you, ma'am, for the question. Especially staying in a place like Africa, we begin with a lot of challenges and lots of obstacles. Nevertheless, the only way forward is to try and strive to achieve it. And that's what we try to do even at Indian Language School. To begin with, yes, definitely teachers were trained, and it involved a rigorous training for hours together, because it was a kind of a one-sided story or a one-way street. Because when you're teaching to a screen, you do not know what is the response of the audience or your students. You do not face any questions. And I believe to some extent, it does lose the charm of teaching. But nevertheless, I would say, since so many of us have done courses from international universities, and it's a daily feature in my school that teachers need to upgrade, especially the leaders, every 3 months, looking at what is recent in the world. As I was saying earlier that, I was a part of a British school in Dubai, and that's where I learned from this model that it's the continuous way forward is upgrading. So since the teachers were already into that mode, I think it wasn't that difficult. We did adapt to it pretty fast. But yes, the acceptability from the end of the students and parents continues to be a challenge. Yes, time is definitely a paucity, and not a lot of syllabus can be covered. The kind of interaction that you have in class, especially related to the projects or any kind of a hands-on activity that you do in class, is not possible, even though you have the breakout rooms in Zoom and you give them projects to do at home. but it's not the same, the kind of interaction that you normally have in a class. But this is the new normal, and I think instead of cribbing about it and feeling that what would happen and what would come next, I think the best thing is to accept it and move further. The school, not only Indian language school, but I know for a fact many schools would have done that, providing a laptop for every teacher, which initially was not possible. The teachers themselves had challenges with it and the technology use, and of course the new platforms of e-learning. Also a bigger challenge is, I think, from the part or the end of the students. If you've got like 2 children in a house and you've got 1 laptop to share amongst them, you need to decide whether you need to have just a live class, or do you have a recorded lesson, or you know, you just have some kind of happy hours. We're having several happy hours in school, and you know, we time and again try to see that recordings are available. So whenever a child logs in, something is available for the child. So yes, with all this coming in front of us, I definitely see a very positive way further. New softwares and I would say platforms will be available for us to take a step further. And I think there's no looking back. I wonder myself whether we would go back to an old concept of a classroom, which we definitely should not. And I think the blended learning would be the only way forward. So that's what I feel. With that positive approach, I say that, yes, we are very happy to welcome this new policy of education, and it was much needed in time, you know, and I think it's the best way forward. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. I think the children are really happy with the change, you know,
Yes.
because the comfort of doing things in their own time, the
At
burden
your
is
own
less,
pace. I think
and
that's
choice
the beauty.
of subjects. It was there abroad, but not here. So I think that is something really great.
Yes.
So thank you. My next question now would be to Mr. S.K. Rathore, Chairman and MD of Stanford Group of Schools. Children are very happy and will not have the stress of board exams. They can choose subjects of their choice of different streams: botany, accountancy, history, dance, music, and 5 subjects which was never heard of, a blended way of learning. So how do you expect you know, to guide them and make them handle these new kind of combinations? Will they be able to put in that much of effort, or would it be taking it easy? I would just like your thoughts on that, Mr. Rathore, please.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So as the selection of the subjects would be open after the implementation of NEP 2020 for the children. This way, at this stage, children needs lots of counseling, because we need to be very, very careful as parents, as educators. We need to be very, very careful. Children should not take any subject in fascination. We need to guide the children about the career path, what career path they are going to choose. At the same time, it is very good move also. Now we are going to follow the international practices. So we are going to produce the global students. So whenever the children after passing of the 12th standard from our schools goes for any competitive examination or goes for any international education, I think that would be easy for the child. Because if, for example, if any child is planning to enter into engineering or medical, so the child need to take those subjects as the serious subject, and they can choose any two less burden subject to complete the five subject to enter into board examination. So their main focus should be on those subjects or what are required for those competitive examinations. So I think that would be a good move. But at the same time, we need to create that kind of environment in the school, so that we should ask the children, we should ask our teachers to put stress on the subjects what are required for their career path, and not much emphasis on the subject what are required just to complete the 5 subject or 4 subject is required for the board examinations. So this is a good move. Rather, I can say, because we are majorly in preschool segment. So I can say, if I just want to add this thing, I can say that what kind of education, this NEP is talking for the early childhood. First thing, this is very welcome move of the government. First time they are recognizing the need of early childhood education. Now preschool is going to be recognized from the government itself. One thing. Second thing, all the preschools I can say are working more or less on the experiential learning. Most of the preschools are already working. Now we have to see what kind of content NCERT is going to give us, what changes are required in our system. There's one question in my mind, and I'm talking to many people. The local language, what the NEP is talking about for the primary education, or till up to 8th standard, they are talking about the medium of instruction as local language. So this would be a little difficult to understand, and maybe over a course, after some time, we can understand how we'll plan to deliver the classes in local language. Because at one time we are talking about producing of global students, and at the same time we are advocating about the local language as a medium of instructions. Local language should be taught. I'm in favor of that, but at the same time medium of instruction should remain same across the country. So that is my thought. Maybe I may be wrong, but how can any brand or any publisher produce different language content? That is a big question. How will it happen? Another thing is I'm very hopeful state should not dilute these the NEP's outcome, because again this is a state subject. So state should look into the NEP, and as it is they'll implement, then it would be good.
Very true. In fact, that was going to be my question for Mandita ma'am also. And Jyoti, you could add first.
Yeah. So I wanted to add something to what Mr. Rathore was saying about the choice of subjects. The CBSE always gave us the option, or the students to the options to choose whatever subjects they wanted to. Ever since Mr. Ganguly was there, this was introduced that the children can take up any of the 5 subjects. The schools started streams, or they were giving the children combinations of, let us say, accounts, business studies, or economics and maths, or they were giving them the combination of PCM or PCMB with biology or physical education, because A, they did not have to keep too many teachers, and B, the most important was that the colleges, that is the institutions of higher education, always demanded the children to have 2 sciences and 1 mathematics and 1 language for engineering. For BCom honors, they would always ask for accounts, business studies, economics, and maths. And so somehow these schools got into this, practice of offering these subjects, and the timetable would be made for the children accordingly. But the option of picking up history, physics, music, and dance was already there. And there were some children who were doing it. Like, for example, if we look at the IB curriculum, then you can, in 12th, take only 1 science and maths. And the colleges across the world, not in India, but across the world, admit the students on 1 mathematics and 1 science to the engineering colleges. And also, I think somewhere we have realized here that nothing happens in isolation. So if an engineer is producing a product through his engineering prowess and does not know the psychology of the people who he is designing the product for, or does not know the design technology, or does not know the combination of the colors, then what will he do? For example, Google hires the artists as much as he hires the coders. because the way your app should look like, or your window should look like, if it is gross looking or the color combination is not there, then it has no meaning. So probably we have also realized that is why in NEP now IITs have also been given 10 years to introduce the liberal arts and to intersperse the liberal arts and the humanities subjects along with the sciences. So I think it was the need of the hour. It was already there. So more than the schools, I think the higher ed needs to change here. And they have to kind of come up with that mindset that we are ready to accept the children who have done history and psychology and political science and chemistry, and the child can still go into pharmacy. So that is what needs to be understood now. And the second thing, sir, Mr. Rathod, that you were talking about, English is still the link language in our constitution. So Hindi and English are the link languages, especially for schools in the NCR, where all of our classes are more like a mini India, where there's so much of diversity into the languages. We have a Bengali, a South Indian, and when I talk about South Indian, all the 4 languages that are there in South India, the Gujarati, Maharashtrian, everybody who's sitting in our classrooms. So we can't possibly have a classroom which is going to teach in their regional language or local language. For us, fortunately in UP, the local language is also Hindi. So Hindi and English being the linked languages in our constitution, English is not a foreign language. So we will continue to have a choice of teaching the children in English.
But ma'am, we cannot take up this NEP for Delhi NCR region only.
No,
So
for the rest of the country also.
What I have read in NEP document, see, they are talking about regional language as a medium of instruction, or content also in the same regional language, or bilingual. So if we talk about bilingual or regional language. So if we
or
talk
about
languages
decided by the state.
So if we talk about West Bengal, then Bengali and English should be there. If we talk about Karnataka and Kannada, and English should be there. So the preparation of content
will be there. It's already mentioned in the NEP. So it will always be there. So I'm not too worried about that. But yes, in the 3 language formula, if I've understood correctly, it is the foreign languages which were being taught from class 6 onwards, or in some schools in class 4 onwards. Now they are only in the secondary space, that is from class 9 onwards. So it is only coming for them, for the foreign languages.
But they will not
if we will want to continue to teach, let us say, German and French and Spanish, or Japanese or Chinese, then we might have to have 4 languages instead of 3 languages.
And that, I think that would be too much for a student to also assimilate. And I think the beauty is the fluidity of, having a combination of subjects. Because I know for a fact that IB offers about 11 to 13 subjects. And, the choices are always, much broader for a child to take as they proceed further in higher education. And for all the universities internationally, especially US, I would say, even if you've done you have combination of accounts and business studies and economics, you can go for biotechnology. Because this is the beauty, that you have the foundation, or you have the one-on-one courses which you are kind of a taster into what would be coming your way. And they give you opportunity to kind of blend or upgrade yourself. So I think that's the beauty of the whole system, and definitely the universities and colleges would, look at it. And Dr. Jyoti has put it beautifully, giving us a whole picture of it. It's on your tips, right, Jyoti? That was great. But I think it's really progressive, and it was much needed in time, and we're looking forward to it. So this is something which would bring the beauty and the understanding of the 21st century, which is so much needed.
Absolutely. And when we talk about IB also says ki apni local language padhaiye. So it gives a due importance And
Yes.
it has brought in a couple of regional languages also when the
Yes.
people told the IB. So scientifically, yes, the children learn the best in the language that they speak. But if they speak English and if they speak Hindi, then so be it. Let it be.
Yes. Let it be. Why not? Yes. Definitely. And I think that that age also, what we understand is that the children's capability to grasp is much higher.
I
So
would
definitely, even if they are exposed to many languages, they would pick it up. You know, mother tongue, definitely from the environment in the house, you tend to pick it up. And along with that, if there are two extra languages, I think for that age group, it would be, I think, a win-win situation to, you know, have gain more competency in terms of a language.
It definitely helps because knowing more languages today is an asset. And I think it's important, like I'm in Bangalore, Karnataka. I came here about 25 years back. But the handicap is I don't know Kannada. And many a times, you know, you feel, I wish I'd learned it because for me it was Hindi, English all along, having studied in the North. But I think everywhere where we stay, we should be able to understand the local language till
Yes.
a certain stage. So
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah, I remember like in Dubai, the KHDA had said that Arabic is compulsory. And,
correct.
you know, they were running even for courses for teachers as well. So
Hmm.
even if you shift to Dubai and, you know, you've grown up, you can't learn, they do give you time to catch up with the language. And it's always a set to know an extra language in your life. So I think it's a good move by, again, the policymakers on introduction of multilingualism. Yeah.
Manvita ma'am, would you like to add your views also? I just wanted to have a simple question. Your school is in Kurg and in Karnataka, your schools, and what do you feel about this languages and also this transition, you know, to a digital way of teaching, which is the new normal? So suddenly we all had to handle it. How were you able to manage it well, or you all are still finding difficulties? What is it?
A very good afternoon. Um, well, coming from Coorg, which is a rural part in Karnataka, it is a huge challenge because if you've been following the news, you know that we have a small flood-like situation in Coorg. There's a lot of landslides, and hence the connectivity is a challenge. Um, hence, having online classes is definitely not happening in Coorg. They're sending in videos, small videos, which is right now the only means of conveying and disseminating information to students. But at the same time, because there is a lot of issues with power, uh, power transmission is very intermittent, and it's really not helping. The digital medium in the rural segment, I think it's the same across India. It's really not helping the students, but probably if you're from an affluent family or the elite where you can access some kind of a net connectivity, then it does work in the rural sector. Now, coming to the languages, like Mr. Rathore just mentioned, in 2019, there was a preschool summit where we spoke about the preschools. Till then, it was an unorganized sector. And now that it's organized, having these multilingual approach in the preschool sector is a wonderful, wonderful concept. But I have one thing, Kavita madam. Well, it's very nice to introduce various languages, but how proficient would a parent be to revise those languages at home? Because we still believe in giving some kind of a what we call as homework. And that would still come in as a challenge unless and until there are books which are revised, which will help children to revise the language at home or help parents to assist their children in learning these languages at home. That's one thing. And at Coorg, the rural part of Karnataka, considering the language element I stay in Bangalore, though I keep shuffling between Coorg and Bangalore, and I'm a psychologist, so I keep getting a lot of students who come in for career counseling. Only yesterday I had a client who asked me, do I need to take up French or German? So the shift from English is definitely there, but then English will definitely not lose its hold because it's an international language, but people are looking at French. The international languages are still there and people would want to pursue it. But if you look at which medium has to be considered for as a medium of education in the rural sector, then it's a huge debate, because even if you're speaking at a rural part of India, as somebody pointed out, there are many parts, especially in South India, we have completely different kind of regional language, which is going to come in as a challenge. Yeah, absolutely multilingual.
Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Kurdi, name it.
Right.
Bengali, yes.
So it is a challenge. It is a challenge. Giving training to teachers, if that is one choice, then one has to be very mindful while they're choosing the language of instruction in schools. I'm speaking about the early childhood care and the primary. Maybe in the higher secondary and senior secondary, it's going to be different. But then in the early part of education, the child can really not make the choice. Impromptu, the parents would be making the choice for the child. So there is a challenge, according to me. However, NEP, maybe we might see some kind of a revision in the following years, which would cater to the entire Indian diaspora, pan-India.
Thank you so
That's
much.
my view.
So thank you everyone. It was 1 hour of engaging conversation, lot of learnings and takeaways by everyone. A group discussion always helps us because many brains come together and talk from diverse industries. And Pranav had, he always manages to get an international forum. So we get different perspectives from different parts of the world. And over to you now, Pranav. Thank you for having me here.
I'm really thankful to Kavita to moderate the show, Dr. Jyoti Gupta, who has been always helping us from so many years. And we just got introduced, I think 15, 20 days back, Madam Sonali Gupta from Lagos. She has been helping us a lot. And Mr. Rathod is always there for us for any kind of help we need. Thank you, Rathod sir. Thanks for your time.
So much, Pranav.
Thank you, Kavita. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Pranav.
much. Thank you.
I appreciate this. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Atarna. Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Pranav.